Hey, good morning, everybody. Meteorologist Craig Majeski back with you here on the Weather Nerds YouTube channel for the weather report here on your October the 8th, 2025. Hope you guys having a great day out there. Got a lot to get into for today. We're going to give you an update on the tropics. We got a couple things out there. Really worried about maybe some flooding getting out into the southwest. We're going to talk about some heavy snows here in the next week. Boy, I tell you, it looks like the west is really going to get cranking. We're talking feet potentially there in California, and we'll show you that total here in a second as well. Yesterday's highs and lows across the nation. 14 was the coldest spot up there in Wyoming, and 100 down there in South Texas, down there Rio Grande, checking in 100 degrees there as that's how it's looking right now. But boy, we're looking at this cold front coming in here. We got some wet weather there coming across areas of New England right now here for this morning. We're going to watch and get this thing out of studio mode there. There we go. And looking at the big weather map, there you go, kind of see the picture of what's going on. We do have some cool weather coming in. Providing some chilly weather here across the Great Lakes. It's going to be heading into the northeast and then eventually giving us a little nice cooler wedge down the eastern half of the United States. We're still looking at the possibility of this low pressure system developing off the east coast. That's going to cause some problems, some coastal flooding and some heavy rains along the coastal areas there. We'll have to watch as well over the next few days. So again, there's some other to talk about, but the middle of the country we'll continue to see the return of above normal temperatures. I know you guys are tired of that, but unfortunately, not going to see a lot of change there. Oh, by the way, if you're new to the channel, by the way, and if you can help me out here, again, this is a no-nonsense weather channel. We don't hype every storm to death. I don't try to scare you. I just try to give you the facts and then, keep you guys weather informed and keep you safe out there. I do appreciate you guys supporting the channel. Speaking of that rain up in the northeast, let's go take a look at some of that. You see some of that rain there falling up there into New York City, kind of a wet commute up there down toward Trenton and down toward Atlantic City, looking a little wet. Philadelphia getting a little wet as well here for this morning. But that'll be coming to an end. That's moving off the eastern seaboard. Don't have to worry about that. Things will begin to improve there. In the wake of this storm, we're going to see the colder temperatures. Look at all these frost advisories out here across portions of West Virginia, going up to New York and Massachusetts. Got some freeze warnings up here this morning. Got some fog down across the Gulf Coast. And other than that, that's about it right now. Not looking too bad out there for the moment. All right, let's go talk about the tropics. Let's see what's going on out there. We do have Jerry out here. Jerry's undergoing some wind shear this morning. Not looking all that good. A little ragged out there. This little disturbance, we're not worried about it. It's going into Mexico there. Not to worry about that for right now. So as we take a look at the latest on Jerry, it continues to move at a pretty quick pace. Tropical storm systems moving at 23 miles per hour really don't get an opportunity to develop that well. They're just not sitting over that warm water long enough to really kind of get themselves going. And it's definitely undergoing some wind shear. Top sustained winds at 50, so same as it was yesterday. But it is forecast to get into a little more favorable position. And we do have tropical storm watches up here for the northern Leeward Islands here, as it's going to make it just close enough there to cause some tropical storm force winds and some squally weather there. This one's tracking a little bit further south than some of the previous storms, so it's going to have a better chance of kind of just glancing the islands there. But you notice, again, it stays well on out to sea. Don't have to worry about that one as it goes ahead and heads on out. Again, continuing the trend up for 2025. Do we finish the year without a landfalling tropical system? I think we had like 4 last year, so I think we're due for a break, so I'm not going to complain about it. So as we look at the satellite picture, again, system not looking as good as yesterday. It looks like we've got a little bit of wind shear. The center's kind of exposed. You got a little bit of upper level winds in here. Also seeing this dangum Saharan dust out here. Unbelievable that Saharan dust lingered to almost the entirety of the hurricane season, because it typically dies down going later in the year, and it just never did this year. So anyway, Gulf of Mexico looks quiet. The Western Caribbean continues to remain quiet, although, again, looking into next week, I saw the Hazard Center put out outlook saying, watch this center for development here as we go to the end of the month. So we're going to watch that zone, because sometimes you'll get these storms that'll sneak up out of the north here and, try to kind of peel off here in one of the directions heading toward the Florida or Texas, perhaps. So we're going to watch that closely. So looking at the forecast model loop here, this is the ESANS Ensemble model, again, showing that big curve on a hurricane kind of going on out to sea. Watch out in here. You notice this is a 10-day loop. As we go into next week, start to see a little more low pressure starting to pop up into that zone down there. I'm not saying we're going to get anything to develop just yet, but it's showing some indications of lower pressure. Another wave kind of coming up here to the north again. But again, I think we got something to watch for. If I get a storm down there in the Western Caribbean, the next named storm is Karen. Yes, get ready for the hurricane memes if we get a Hurricane Karen. That is possible for next week. We'll see how that plays out. All right, let's go take a look at the Pacific side. We got to worry about the Pacific side because some of this moisture in the Pacific is going to work its way into the southwest portion of the United States. So we're looking at Priscilla, which is starting to fall apart, and we're probably going to get another named storm. The next named storm behind this one is Raymond. Raymond, I got a friend named Raymond, so that's what we're seeing there. And so we look at the track here on Priscilla. We do have the tropical storm watches here along the Baja California here, and again, we're going to see this thing track up and make a turn up to the north, and some of that moisture is going to get into the southwest. That's with Priscilla. I think Raymond's moisture, if it forms as well, which it probably will, it too will see its moisture getting drawn up into the southwest. So just this consistent trophiness out in the west is going to continue to act as a bit of a magnet and bring that moisture north, and it's going to cause some problems for the folks out in the west. So here is the satellite imagery again. Starting to get that cooler water. You're not getting the very bright cloud tops there, thunderstorm cloud tops there on Priscilla, as it'll continue to weaken as it moves into that cooler water. And of course, here's our next area to watch, and this is what's left of Octave. Really not kind of this tropical storm, just kind of holding its own, I guess, a little bit right there, but it should be fizzling on out here in the days ahead. All right, let's go ahead and talk about looking at the thunderstorm threat here across the country. We do not have any organized thunderstorm severe weather threats here for the next few days. We've got general thunderstorm threats here across the southwest along that frontal boundary here for today. That being your Wednesday. Thursday, also looking just little pockets of thunderstorm threats here across the nation, nothing significant. And also going into day 3, going into your Friday. Looking at South Florida, the west getting a little active out there, and across portions of the Great Lakes. That's about it. Now, as far as the excessive rainfall, that's something we do have to watch, especially with some of that moisture coming up out of the southwest. You're looking at your day 1 today, not bad. Marginal, day 2, also not bad. You can see some coastal issues down here towards South Florida to watch there. Let me get this thing turned on. My pen turned on there. There we go. So watch that. And then going to day 3, as we start working about out the west, some of that moisture getting out here. So we're looking at Arizona, Utah, parts of Colorado. Flagstaff's in this, so we'll have to watch for some potential flooding for this as some of that tropical moisture starts to work its way northward here in the days ahead. You see that turn coming up this way, and we'll see how this thing plays out going into going into this weekend or early next week. So let's go take a look at the model data. Let's go ahead and talk about the systems across the country. Let me get that up for you here real quick as we're looking at the latest high-resolution model here. Actually, you know what? I want to switch this over. I do not want to be on this one. I want to switch over to the NAM. Hold on one second. I thought I'd switch that over. I did not. So let me switch that over for you real quick. All right, so here we go. All right, so we got the one front clearing the East Coast, moving on. Nice cold down. Look at that 540 line, cold temperatures there in the Northeast. Unsettled here across South Georgia, getting some rain down there. We got another system here coming up in the middle of the country going toward Friday, so we say goodbye to this one. We got some moisture coming up out of the south, and we got this low pressure building off the west coast. So this upper level low spinning off here, which is pulling that moisture northward. Seeing the rains there across Arizona, Utah, going in through that day on your Thursday and into Friday. So all the action is basically exiting the East Coast. We got a nice little cool down there across the Northeast, nice crisp in the Midwest. Little rain here across Florida in the south, and again, it rains out here in the west. And there's our next storm system kind of dropping down on Friday there. Again, kind of reinforcing the cool drop down there across the Northeast. So, again, not looking too bad out there for the next couple of days. Again, this goes out about 60 hours. Here's where our rainfall concentrations are. The Northeast, obviously, with the rains clearing out there. Maybe some heavier rains across South Georgia for tomorrow. We'll see about that. The high-resolution model was kind of hinting at this as well. And then we got the rains out here in the west. You notice the track here. Look, it's just starting to show up here on the end of the run here on Friday. So we got some initial moisture coming north ahead of Priscilla, and then this is the heavy stuff coming in toward next week. So we got to track that, and then you got the low spreading off the west coast, bringing some rains there from Washington State into Oregon. All right. Now, as far as the temperature cool down, we got a brief cool down here across the east. That's very nice, but still kind of staying warm in the west. There's that cold front showing up very nicely there on the loop. We're going to warm up there in the middle of the country, though. Midwest will feel like fall. The Northeast will feel like fall. And the Southeast this weekend will feel like fall, but it's going to warm up in the middle of the country as we go into this upcoming weekend. I mean, you can clearly see right at the end of the run here, we're already getting, this stops at 2 o'clock, we're already getting into the 80s back here into Kansas and stuff. And it's going to warm up here right in the middle of the country once again as that ridging returns there and a little unsettled here on the west coast. All right, so nice little cool down though here across the east, man. It's going to be full nice cool wedge all the way down to C50s there. 2 o'clock in the afternoon showing up here on the NAM. I think it's a little overdone. but that's coming on there. It's going to be rain down there as well. So, all right, let's go take a look at the big model picture here. This is the European model again. And the one thing, again, I'm seeing about this, again, model continuity has definitely not been there. You're not seeing a real progressive jet stream or anything like that. You're seeing cutoff lows all over the doggone place. What that means is you got a complicated weather pattern out there. So that means you're going to get changes from run to run. That'll be probably a little more significant than what we typically would see. All right, so definitely a very, very active looking map, depending on where you're at, especially out in the west. The west is definitely looking very active out there. Here's our tropical moisture being pulled up from there. There's our upper level low. There's our tropical moisture coming up there. Look at this big ridging here in the middle of the country. Exiting trough here off the East Coast. You got this coming off there. So we got that exiting on off. So let's go ahead and bring this forward here. Bring that forward. And then we got that low pressure. Got this building on down. There's this coastal low that's going to form right there this weekend. So you see that blue off the East Coast. So we got this coastal low. It's going to be a bit of a problem here along the East Coast. Look at this out in the west. Wow, this is what's going to bring in that heavy snow going into next week. And wait till I show you those snow totals, man. Especially California. Boy, they're really going to get buried as this kind of slams on in. But this low's going to pull in. But look at the middle of the country. Wow. This goes in early next week, where you know this means. That means we're going to see warm weather out here. Here's our coastal low kind of moving on out very slowly. And then this kicks on out. And then there's another trough coming down into the following weekend. Now, what this means for the Northeast is it looks like we're cool in the west. We're kind of cool in the Northeast. I'm really kind of the storm prediction. I mean, the Cloud Prediction Center might make some changes to the northwest, to the Northeast, because I keep seeing this showing up here fairly short term. This is inside 10 days. It's getting close. So if this continues, we might see some changes there. This would also bring another cooler wedge down here across the eastern portion of the United States again. It'll be like the third one in a row. Still very warm in the middle of the country there going on out. And then it looks like we get a little bit of ridging here across the southeast as we get a cutoff low across the southwest and ridging here going toward the 22nd. So again, a very, very active looking pattern that's going to change day to day. The short-term stuff going 3 to 5 days, I think we're looking pretty good. But because we're basically dealing with bumper cars in the atmosphere, we're going to continue to see a very changing weather pattern, changing weather condition almost every day here from run to run, because we're just not getting that, the typical ebbs and flows of the jet stream. We're seeing more cutoff low features than anything else. All right, so here's our active weather here for the next 7 days. We got this low off the coast. We got the front clearing. We got a coastal low that's forming here. It's going to cause problems up and down the eastern seaboard here going into next week that we got to watch. So that's going to be a bit of a problem. Turn my timestamp back on there. Sorry about that. I had to reset that. And so that's going to be a problem there. The middle of the country's quiet. And then we got the storm out here in the west. Watch this storm here out of the west coast going in the next 7 days. Coming on in, nice little moisture feed here. Here's some heavy snows in California, moving up in the interior of Idaho and into portions of Montana going in next week. And then we got the flooding rains across Arizona to deal with, some of that moisture coming up there from Priscilla to deal with as well. So again, the active weather is going to be in the west and the east coast. Middle of the country not looking all that bad. Midwest, southeast continues to stay on the quiet side for the most part. Here's where your active rainfall is. Obviously, the East Coast, you see the heavy rains there from New York State all the way down along the coastal areas where that the coastal low is expected to form going into next week. We'll have to watch that closely to see how that develops, because if it stays far enough offshore, maybe you don't get as much rain. Obviously, you see the heavy rains here across Arizona and New Mexico. That's complements of, obviously, Priscilla. And then we got heavy rainfall amounts of that upper level feature finally swinging on into California, Oregon, and Washington State, some heavy rains in there. This will be snow, folks, across California, and it's significant. We're talking feet in this area here. And then also some heavy snows that potentially go into the Intermountain region of Idaho and into Montana going into next week. Again, this is a 7-day total. I don't go beyond a 7-day because of what I just said. The model's changing so radically beyond that window. All right, so looking at the snow totals here, this was no joke. Again, I was highlighting this, 20 inches. Wow, I mean, this is good. 18 inches. This is good, real solid snow. I mean, I know I was teasing it yesterday. I thought it was good snow totals yesterday, but this is even bigger. So this is getting even more getting some pretty healthy snows in there. Over 10 inches there in Oregon. So the higher the Cascade Mountains, 12 inches there. The interior of Montana, 9, 7, 8. We're definitely getting some nice snow starting to develop out there in the west. And if I take this out to the extrapolate, just how active it's going to be out there. Somebody was posting this. I'm just going to take this out just to kind of show you how we're going to build on the snow total here over the next 2 weeks here. I mean, really starting to really spread out here as we're getting more snows out in the west. So we're getting a decent snowpack out in the west. That'll keep it kind of chillier and colder in the west as a result of that snow. All right, so let's go look at the temperatures here. I'm kind of looping this here for the next 7 days. I'll slow this down, but you kind of get the coolness here in the east of the weekend, but it warms back up across a big part of the country going into next week. So this little brief cool down you guys got in the east, don't get used to it. It's going to go away. All right, we got warm here. Look at this Saturday here. We're in the 80s in Kansas once again. Just coming right back at us going into this upcoming Saturday and Sunday here. Let's go into Sunday afternoon here. Sunday morning, look at the cold. Got some freezing temperatures out in the west when you see the blue popping up there. Coolness here in the east. Again, that brief little fall warm up there, but look at the 80s starting to sneak back up into Nebraska on Sunday. Just unreal that we're seeing that. 70s going up into Iowa. I mean, again, it's supposed to be cooling off, folks. And then we got that cold front. Here's our next cold front on Monday. So here's our cold front here. Here's cool down here still in the east, but warm up in the middle of the country. Got some cold temperatures out in the west there on Monday morning. And then as we go into your Monday afternoon, again, 70s, very warm here in the east, very warm across the southeast. We're seeing middle to upper 80s here, building right back up here and here again. And I expect widespread 80s here going into next week here across the southeast going into next Tuesday. So again, you've seen the 80s incorporating across South Georgia, back across Oklahoma coming back in here, and relatively mild across the plains, the mid 70s coming back in here. We're supposed to be cooling this off because, you know, give you an example, Gainesville, Georgia, we're up near where I'm at, it's supposed to be 75 degrees this time of year. So the fact that we're seeing 70s up into Iowa and into Illinois, we're supposed to be dropping into the 60s for highs. We're going to look at above normal temperatures. Going to be staying with us here, and we're just not seeing the cool down. Days are getting shorter, but we're still holding on to this warmth. Look at this, 80s going into Wednesday next week, also going into Kansas. So the warm weather is there, so you can imagine what the climate outlook is going to look like. Not seeing any big changes here, folks. We're going to have to deal with warm weather as well as dry weather for the most part. Look at that. We are colder out in the west. Obviously, we're going to be bringing all that snow out here in the west. We've got to be colder too. So you see that very, very warm here in the east with above normal temperatures here. Some parts, especially the southern plains, very summer-like there. And that will continue from the 8th to the 14th. Again, that goes from the 15th to the 21st. You're on your 8th to 14-day outlook there. So we're staying warm there. My only question mark on this would be, we're starting to see indications maybe the northeast gets a little cool down here. We saw a couple of shots there coming down on the European. Let's see if that holds true. What the Climate Prediction Center is trying to do, they're saying, where is my model continuity? Because run to run has just not been there. So they're not going to make many major changes here on the long-range outlook unless something really locks in. So that's been a bit of a challenge on long-range forecasting. Now, this is definitely going to stay in place here. These drought conditions across the southeast are going to continue to be a problem. Obviously, we got the heavy rain threat here across the southwest because of Priscilla coming on up there. And looking at the 8 to 14 day, no big changes here. We're active. We got the active weather pattern in the west, so we're looking wet out here, and we're staying dry out here in most of the southern tier of the United States. So October is a dry month, but boy, this is just ridiculous. We were dry in September for a lot of the south, and it looks like that's going to continue here, going in toward the middle of October. So again, appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Get back over here to Weather Tech. Here we go. Kind of waiting for that front to clear on through here for today. Again, appreciate that. Hey, good morning, Edith. Good to see you out there for this morning. I appreciate that. And you guys, hope that you guys have a great day out there. And we'll see you tomorrow on the next update. Until then, y'all, just be good. We'll talk to y'all later. Have a good day. Bye-bye.